If you grew up Mexican in the 80s, you rode in the back of a pickup down a Texas highway, and nobody flinched. You walked to la tiendita at 6 with 2 quarters in your fist. You climbed onto a roof to turn the TV antenna. None of these things were illegal then. The world just changed around your childhood. Number 17 on this list became a misdemeanor in California in 1994. Number 11 was sold in toy departments until December of 1988, then pulled off shelves after a string of child deaths. Number 4 could now trigger a CPS visit in some neighborhoods. These 20 ordinary things were the texture of a barrio life from San Antonio to East LA. Hit subscribe before this list ends and stay through to number 1. Pause 1 second. Number 20. Riding in the bed of the pickup. Every Mexican family with a Ford or a Chevy hold cousins in the back of the truck on weekends. 6 primos on the way to the swap meet. 8 kids riding to the panaderia for pan dulce. The truck bed had a spare tire, a cooler of Topo Chico, and whoever fit. You sat with your back against the cab and watched the freeway exit signs slide past your shoulders. Your Tayo drove with one elbow on the open window and never once looked in the rear view to count heads. The wind dried out your eyes. The sun burned a stripe across your cheekbones. Nobody buckled anything, because there was nothing to buckle. Texas Transportation Code 545.413 now makes it a misdemeanor to put any child under 18 in the bed of an open pickup, with a fine between $25 and $200. The exceptions are parades, hay rides, and farm worker transport on county roads. None of those covered a Saturday run to the carniceria in San Antonio. Number 19. Walking to LA tiendita alone at 6 years old. Your mother handed you 2 quarters and a paper list, pan blanco, una coca de vidrio, a bag of sabritones if there was change. The tiendita was 3 blocks away, past 2 stop signs and a yard with a chained dog you knew by name. You walked alone. You came back alone. Nobody filmed any of this on a doorbell camera, because doorbell cameras did not exist yet. The legal landscape has shifted. There is no federal age for walking alone, but child welfare experts now generally place the safe threshold at 8 to 10 years old. And several high-profile cases since 2015 have triggered CPS investigations for parents who let younger children walk by themselves. The mythic case in Maryland took 2 months to resolve and ended in a finding of unsubstantiated child neglect. In 1985, a Mexican mother would have laughed if a neighbor called anyone. In 2026, that same walk could open a file. The tiendita is still there. The walk is the same length. The world that surrounds it changed every rule. Number 18. Drinking Mexican Coke out of a glass bottle on the curb. The cap came off with the metal opener bolted to the wall outside the tiendita. The glass was cold enough to fog. The kids sat on the curb with the bottle between their knees and drank slow, because Mexican Coke in glass tasted different than in a can. And every 7-year-old on the block knew it. The bottle went back to the shop for the deposit. 2 pennies a bottle, sometimes a nickel. The hazard now is what nobody thought about then. A glass bottle on a curb breaks. A barefoot kid steps on it. A car runs it over and shards spray 10 feet. Most cities now restrict glass containers in public spaces, and some neighborhoods in Los Angeles and San Antonio carry fines up to $100 for open glass on a sidewalk. The abuela saved the empty bottles in a wooden crate by the back door. She carried them back to the store every Saturday and got the deposit in coins. Number 17. Riding a bike without a helmet. Your bike was a hand-me-down Schwinn from a cousin 3 years older. The seat was too high. The chain slipped. You rode it 8 blocks to your friend Memo's house, with your hair flying back and your shirt unbuttoned in the heat. There was no helmet because nobody owned one. California passed its first bicycle helmet law in 1987. for kids 5 and under. In 1993, Governor Pete Wilson signed an expanded version that took effect January 1st, 1994, requiring everyone under 18 to wear a properly fitted helmet on any street, bikeway, or public path. Helmet usage in California jumped from 10% to over 60% within 2 years. The kid who learned to ride a Schwinn down a Rio Grande Valley sidewalk in 1985 is now legally required to put a helmet on his own grandson. The bike had no reflectors and no light. The cousins came home when the streetlights came on, not before. Number 16. Lighting cohetes for 10 The 16th of September was the day everything in the family driveway smelled like sulfur. The Tio bought a paper bag of bottle rockets at a roadside stand outside the city limits for around $2. The kids got the small ones. The grown-ups handled the cherry bombs. A primo held a punk stick between 2 fingers, lit a fuse, and ran. The bottle rocket whistled into the sky over the chain-link fence like a small angry comet. Most of the United States now classifies bottle rockets as illegal consumer fireworks. They are banned outright in California, New York, Massachusetts, and a long list of others. Texas restricts them to specific dates and to unincorporated county land, far from any house. The handcrafted Mexican fireworks the Tios remembered, the ones called cohetes or cohetes, came from towns like Tultepec, where the entire economy was built on gunpowder. Most of those fireworks could not legally cross the border into the United States today. The mother always told the kids to keep their fingers behind the bottle. They always did. Number 15. Drinking water from the garden hose in the backyard. The hose was green vinyl, cracked at the spigot, hot to the touch in August. You bent it over your mouth and drank until the water ran cold from somewhere deep in the line. Your mother yelled from the kitchen window to come inside if you were thirsty. You did not go inside. The hose tasted like rubber and metal and summer, like something a chemist would never bottle on purpose. The science came later. A 2016 study by the Ecology Center in Ann Arbor tested 24 PVC garden hoses and found that 29% contained at least 100 parts per million of lead. One sample registered 68,000 parts per million. Water sampled from one hose contained 18 times the federal drinking water standard for lead. Most hoses sold today carry a California Proposition 65 warning label that warns people not to drink from them. The warning was not on the hose hanging in any backyard in 1985. The hose was the same one that Tio used to wash the truck. Number 14. BB guns in the backyard at 10 years old. Your primo got a Daisy Red Ryder for his 10th birthday and shot empty cans of Tecate off the back fence for the entire summer of 1986. You took turns. You aimed at a paper plate nailed to a board. You shot at sparrows you never hit. The gun was not locked up at night. It leaned against the wall of the garage next to the rakes. California laws in 2026 makes it a crime to sell or transfer any BB gun to anyone under 18. A minor under 18 cannot legally have or use one in any public area. They can only use one on private property with parental consent. Brandishing a replica gun in public can be charged as if it were a real firearm. The Red Ryder still exists. The original 1986 model cost about $28. But the unsupervised summer afternoons when a 10-year-old boy walked the alleyway with a BB gun across his shoulder are gone. The Tio inspected that gun once a month. He showed the boys how to break it open and check the seal. He never let any of them point it at anyone, even by accident. Number 13. Working the panaderia counter at 10 years old. A Tio owned a small panaderia on the west side. The conchas came out of the oven at 4 in the morning. By 6, the front case was full. By 7, a 10-year-old nephew was behind the counter, helping customers point at what they wanted, sliding the paper bag across the glass, counting back change in dollars and quarters. Weekends, summers, every kid in the family worked. Because the tío needed help. And because that was what the family did. The Fair Labor Standards Act has always exempted family businesses from minimum age requirements for non-hazardous work. But state laws and modern enforcement have tightened. California requires a work permit for any minor under 18, even in a family business, and limits hours during the school year. Texas has similar rules. The exemption that let a 10-year-old run a register at a Mexican panaderia in 1985 still technically exists in federal law. But the local rules around it have multiplied so much that most families now keep their kids away from the counter until 15. The tío paid in pan dulce and a folded 20 at the end of the month. The nephew spent the 20 on a pair of Vans and never told his mother. Number 12. Lawn darts in the front yard. The set came in a long cardboard box from a sporting goods store on Commerce Street for around $12. 2 yellow darts, 2 red darts. Plastic rings to throw at. The points were brass, 4 inches long, weighted to plant in the grass like small javelins. We played underhand across the lawn, trying to land each dart inside the rings. Sometimes the dart skipped, sometimes it bounced. Effective December 19, 1988, the United States Consumer Product Safety Commission banned the sale of all lawn darts. Between 1980 and 1988, 6,100 Americans visited emergency rooms because of lawn dart accidents. 3 children, ages 4, 7, and 13, died. The 7-year-old, a girl named Michelle Snow in California, was killed in April of 1987 when a dart thrown by her brother's playmate penetrated her skull. Her father, David Snow, lobbied for the ban. The CPSC voted in October of 1988. Owning a set today is technically still legal, but selling one is not. The set in the tío's garage, the one with the chipped paint and the bent point, sat on a shelf for 30 years before anyone realized it had been illegal to manufacture for most of that time. Here is what most people miss. The lawn darts that flew across Barrio yards in 1985 are now sealed in collector boxes labeled hazardous, traded online at auctions for $100 a set. The same brass point that planted in the grass next to a barefoot cousin is now treated like a small piece of forbidden history. The cultural artifact outlived the legal product by decades. Number 11. Walking home from elementary school alone. Your school was 8 blocks from the house. The walk took 20 minutes if you took the shortcut behind the laundromat. Your mother did not pick anyone up. The bus did not run that route. You walked alone or with a sibling a grade behind, and sometimes you stopped at the tiendita for a Tootsie Pop with the dime your dad had slipped you that morning. You came home before the streetlights. The mother knew the math. There is still no federal age for walking home, but case law since the mid-1990s produced enough Child Protective Services investigations that most school districts now require written parental permission for any walker under 4th grade. Some districts in Houston, San Antonio, and Los Angeles will not release a kindergartner to anyone but a named adult on a pickup list. The 8-block walk through the barrio that the mother considered ordinary is now considered, in many jurisdictions, a borderline neglect issue. The mother set the kitchen timer when school let out. If the kids were late, she walked the route in reverse. She always found them at the tiendita. Number 10. Sitting on your dad's lap behind the wheel of the Buick. The car was a 1978 LeSabre with a vinyl bench seat that felt like an oven in July. Your dad let you steer up the driveway at 6, up the alley at 8. And by 10 you were taking the wheel for the last block before home, your dad's hand resting lightly on top of yours. The dad worked the pedals. The kid held the wheel. The mother in the passenger seat said nothing, because this was how every man in the family had learned to drive since before there was a written test. Every state now has explicit child restraint laws that prohibit any child from riding without a proper seat or seat belt. and several have specific statutes against allowing a minor to operate a vehicle on a public road. Most states fine parents who let unlicensed minors drive, even on a private alley, between $100 and $500. The first time a son drove the Buick alone at 15, the dad rode shotgun and never said a word. He had taught the boy everything before any license existed. The Buick had no airbags, no shoulder belts in the back, and a cigarette lighter that worked. Number 9. Buying penny candy without a parent in the store. Buying penny candy from the jar. The tiendita on the corner sold pelon pelo rico, bubaloo, duvalin, and chicles sold by the piece. 5 cents bought a paleta. A penny bought a bobaloo. The owner kept a glass jar on the counter and let kids reach in with their own fingers, like raccoons hunting through a creek bed. Small hands stood on tiptoe, dropped their dimes on the counter, and walked out with a paper bag full of dulces nobody had asked any mother about. The shift was slow but real. The Food Safety Modernization Act of 2011 reshaped how loose candy is allowed to be displayed in retail food settings. Most states now require any candy sold loose to be kept behind a barrier, dispensed by an employee with a clean utensil, or pre-wrapped at the source. The bare hand reach into the glass jar is still legal in some small Texas tienditas, but it would not pass a county health inspection in Los Angeles. The candy money came from finding glass bottles on the side of the road and turning them in for the deposit. The owner of the tiendita knew every kid by name and which dulces each one liked. Number 8. Loteria with real money on the table. Sunday afternoons at the abuela's house. The kitchen table was covered with the printed loteria boards. El Gallo, La Sirena, La Dama, El Diablito. Everyone had a stack of pennies or beans, and the older cousins ran the game. The pot was $10, sometimes more if the tios were drinking. A 9-year-old played for real money, and the abuela counted out the coins after each round. One niece won $1.20 once and put it in her sock. Most state laws define unlicensed gambling broadly enough that any cash game, even at a kitchen table, can technically be a misdemeanor. Some states make a specific exception for social gambling among family in a private home. But adding minors to the table changes the calculus. And many state child welfare codes treat involving a minor in any cash gambling as a reportable concern. The abuela did not know any of this. She handed the kids the pennies and said, "Apuesta, mija," and laughed when they covered the wrong square. The radio in the corner played Pedro Infante. Nobody got rich. Nobody got hurt. Pause 1 second. Number 7. Climbing on the roof to fix the antenna. The TV was a wooden cabinet model from 1979, with a knob that turned through 12 channels and a UHF dial that did nothing useful. The picture went snowy every time the wind shifted. Your dad stood in the front yard with a beer and yelled instructions while your tío climbed up the side of the house in his work boots and turned the antenna a 1/4 inch at a time. Sometimes you went up. You were 12 years old, 90 pounds. You crawled across the asphalt shingles in your vans like a cat on a fence, grabbed the metal pole and turned it left until your dad yelled stop. Modern OSHA rules and most municipal building codes treat any unsecured roof work above 6 feet as a fall hazard, requiring harnesses, anchor points, and certified equipment. Sending a child onto a residential roof would now violate child welfare statutes in most states and could trigger a homeowner's insurance cancellation. The picture on the screen sharpened the moment the antenna turned right. The dad raised his beer and yelled, "Bueno," from the front yard. The roof was hot enough to burn small palms. The kid came down without falling because that was the only option. Number 6. Trick-or-treating without an adult in the dark. Halloween, 1986. You were 8. Your costume was a sheet with 2 eye holes cut out and a Star Wars mask your cousin had handed down. 4 of you walked the neighborhood, all under 10. No adult anywhere in sight. You went to every house on the block, then the next block. Then the one after that. You came home at 9 with a pillowcase so heavy, you had to drag it like a sack of cement. Age limits for trick-or-treating now exist in dozens of cities, mostly in Virginia, where teenagers can technically face misdemeanor charges for participating past age 14. More relevant for younger kids, several Child Protective Services jurisdictions now treat unsupervised trick-or-treating before age 12 as a possible neglect concern, especially after dark. Some Midwestern towns push trick-or-treating to a Sunday afternoon time slot specifically, so younger children can go without adult supervision in daylight. The mother handed each kid a flashlight that did not work and reminded them to say gracias at every house. The cousins ate Tootsie Rolls on the curb at the corner of the block before walking home. Number 5. Riding 3 deep on one Schwinn. The bike was a single speed cruiser with a banana seat. One kid pedaled standing up, one kid sat on the seat, and the third kid sat on the handlebars facing forward, legs dangling, holding the chrome with both hands like a figurehead on a small rusted ship. The cousins did this on residential streets, on the sidewalk, sometimes on the shoulder of a 4-lane road if anyone was going to the swap meet. Nobody wore a helmet. Nobody had reflectors. The youngest kid almost always rode the handlebars because he was lightest. California Vehicle Code Section 21204 now requires every passenger on a bicycle to be in a permanent and regular seat attached to the bicycle. Riding on the handlebars is a specific violation. Riding 3 deep is illegal in every state. Most cities will issue a fix-it ticket on a first offense and a fine on a second. The handlebars on Tio's Schwinn had a thin layer of rust that came off on small palms. One primo fell once at the corner of Zarzamora and ended up with a scab on his knee that lasted a month. Number 4. Getting chased with la chancla. Chancla was the rubber sandal your mother kept by the back door. It came off her foot in one motion. It flew across the kitchen with surgical accuracy, like a small heat-seeking missile aimed at the back of your calf. It hit the wall above your head if she missed. It hit your leg if she did not. Every Mexican kid in the 80s had a chancla story. Yours probably involved a broken jar of mole, a screen door slammed too hard, and a sibling who told. The chancla flew. You ducked. The cultural conversation has shifted hard. Mexico amended its general law on the rights of children in December of 2020 to prohibit corporal punishment in all settings. The Mexican state of Jalisco passed an anti-chancla law that allows up to 5 years in prison for inflicting physical punishment on a child. In the United States, no federal law bans spanking, but most states have specific child abuse statutes that can apply to any physical punishment leaving a mark. Child Protective Services investigations triggered by chancla incidents have multiplied since the early 2000s. The chancla itself is now a meme on Instagram, a punchline in a Pixar movie, and in many homes, an extinct discipline tool. One thing I noticed in the comments on Mexican parenting videos is how quickly the conversation splits between 2 generations. The grandmothers in their 70s say the chancla taught respect. The mothers in their 30s say it taught fear. The truth probably sits in the middle, in a generation of kids who learned both at once. The chancla on the shoe rack by the door stayed there for 30 years after the last time it was used in anger. It hung like a small reminder of a system that is now legally and culturally retiring itself, one Mexican household at a time. Number 3. Eating elotes off the cart on the corner. The elotero pushed his cart down Guadalupe Street every afternoon at 4. He rang a bell. He sold corn on a stick for 50 cents, slathered in mayo, dusted with chile and queso fresco. A wedge of lime if anyone asked. 2 quarters landed in a calloused hand. The corn was handed back in a piece of foil. The kids ate it standing on the sidewalk with the juice running down their wrists. The Los Angeles County Department of Public Health now requires every street food vendor to hold a current health permit, a food handler card, and a county business license. Vendors caught operating without permits have had their carts confiscated and their food thrown into trash bags by inspectors on the sidewalk. California Senate Bill 946 in 2018 partially decriminalized street vending, but cities still impose layers of permit requirements that make compliance expensive enough to push many eloteros out of the trade. The elotero who served that block in 1986 paid no permit fees. He worked the same route for 15 years. Every kid in the barrio knew his bell. He retired in 2003 and his car sat in a garage in East Los Angeles until his grandson restored it. Pause for 1 second. Number 2. Falling asleep in the back window of the family car. The car was a station wagon or a Buick or whatever the dad could afford that year. The back window had a flat shelf where the rear glass sloped down to meet the trunk. On the long drive home from the Tio's house in Brownsville, a tired kid climbed up onto that shelf and curled up like a cat in a sunny window. The sun warmed a small back. The hum of the road put the kid under. The mother turned around once and laughed and went back to her conversation. Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standard 213 and equivalent state child restraint laws now require every child under a certain age and weight to be in an approved car seat or booster, secured by a seat belt in a designated seating position. Every state has fines for non-compliance. Texas fines parents up to $250 per unrestrained child. The back window shelf is not a designated seating position in any vehicle ever sold in the United States. The shelf itself is gone too. Modern cars do not have rear window decks deep enough to lie down on. The space where Mexican kids slept does not exist anymore in any meaningful sense. Number 1. Selling chicle at the gas station. A 9-year-old had a shoebox full of chiclets, bought wholesale from a man who came through the neighborhood every Tuesday for about $1.50 a box. The kid set up at the gas station on Commerce Street, where the trucker stopped to fill up. He sold chicle for $1 a pack. The truckers tipped. The boy came home with $8 or $9 after a Saturday morning, and the mother put most of it in a coffee can on top of the refrigerator for school clothes. Federal child labor law restricts most paid work for children under 14, with narrow exceptions for newspaper delivery and family business work. Selling at a gas station to strangers falls outside those exceptions. State laws layer additional restrictions, and most jurisdictions would now classify a 9-year-old soliciting strangers at a fueling station as both a child labor violation and a potential child welfare issue. The mother made the boy wear a clean shirt every Saturday before he left. She watched him walk to the corner. She trusted the gas station owner, who had known the family for 20 years. He stopped selling chicle at 13, the year he got a real summer job sweeping the floor at the panaderia. These 20 things were not crimes in 1985. They were the texture of a Mexican childhood from San Antonio to East Lay. The truck bed, the garden hose, the chancla on the shoe rack, the walk to la tiendita with 2 quarters in a fist. That world did not vanish. It got rewritten, statute by statute, around the kids who came after. Tell us in the comments which one hits hardest and which one almost feels impossible now. I want to know which memory still lives in your tia's house. Subscribe and stay close because the barrio remembers what the law forgot.